Our guest speaker today is Helena Parada Kim. She is connecting from Berlin, from her studio in Berlin, where she's based. But I got to know her work here in Seoul thanks to Choi and Choi Gallery, which is a gallery that is based here and has also a space in Germany, in Cologne. And Choi and Choi does this amazing job of bridging, among others, but bridging the Western art and what's happening here in South Korea. So I saw Helena's work here. Of course, I loved it. And there are many topics she's dealing with, and she will talk about them in a moment when she will start. One topic that really resonated with me is the one of cultural identity, because cultural identity can be a tricky one when you have more than one, and it goes also with the concept of in-betweenness. This is something I am adding. We didn't discuss this during the preparation meeting, but in-betweenness, which is a concept that is very dear to me. And she deals with these topics with grace and with very touching and moving works, and works that are really beautiful, because sometimes we forget how important beauty is in an artwork. So thank you very much, Helena, for being our guest speaker today. Now, in a minute, I will put the spotlight on her, and I will disappear from this video. But before we start, let me very briefly review the housekeeping rules at ARTCaffè. And now we are all yours.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for joining ARTCaffè today and for being so interested in my work. I really appreciate. Thank you also, Raffaella. And yeah, I will introduce myself now a little bit. I don't know if all of you are familiar with my work, so maybe it makes sense just to say some words about my person. I was born in Germany, so I am quite German. My father was Spanish, my mom is Korean, and my mom, she came, as so many other Korean women in the 60s, to Germany to work in Germany as nurses, as guest workers. I think that's a very important information about my background, because I dealt a lot with the fact that my mom was a guest worker in Germany. So when I grew up, my father was a very important figure or person who inspired me a lot, or helped me to approach the art world. He was very interested in art history, especially the old masters, European old masters, Spanish Baroque, Netherlandish Baroque, Flemish Baroque painting. So he was a big influence for me to become an artist, and he taught me also to draw and to paint. So yeah, when I started to study at the Art Academy in Düsseldorf, which is maybe you know it, a very famous school for art in Europe, there was Joseph Beuys and other very important artists from post-war until contemporary art in Europe. And it was a school which had this ideal of avant-garde, to leave art history behind you. So for me, it was quite difficult being there, because it was really a kind of confrontation with avant-garde, where my approach to art was more from traditional painting until 19th century. So I learned all these old masters techniques, how to paint, how to draw figurative. So it was quite difficult, but at the same time, it was really widening my horizon on what art can be. So that was a really important time for me as well, especially with Peter Doig as a figurative painter, who maybe had the same struggle when he started to paint figurative and dealing with romantic motifs in the 90s, where everybody in London or the UK was painting or doing conceptual art. So I identified a lot also with them. Yeah, and during my studies, I more and more was into the story, the biography of my mom. So with my, let's say, traditional background from studying old masters techniques and art, I approached more and more to my mother's world, also to Korean art, which is, or to East Asian traditional art, which is, of course, very different to European, Western traditional art. But it was really an eye-opener for me to travel to Korea first time when I was a student. It was not the first time, but it was the first time with a friend, without the parents, just with more awareness about the country itself. So it was very, very familiar to me. Everything that I perceived was kind of very familiar, but at the same time, very exotic, very strange. And I was perceived also as a stranger, not a Korean. So, as you said, it's really this feeling of being in between. But it's at the same time, it's kind of suffering not to know where you belong to. But at the same time, it's really an energy, something that thrives you to search for, yeah, for a kind of for a part of your identity. So in the last 15 years, I was very much approaching this, where I come from, and the biography of my mom, and traditional Korean motifs like the hanbok played a very important role. Uh, Rituals like the Confucian Jesa. Yeah, so I think starting to work with Choi and Choi, uh, which are based in Cologne and in Seoul, was really a great thing, because they did the same as a gallery that I wanted to approach as an artist, to bring together these two worlds, these two cultures, the Korean art and European art, Korean artists and European artists, to have this exchange. And yeah, my work is a kind of fusion, I would say. Not, it sounds a little bit like as I would brand myself, but it's really it's kind of authentic, because it really comes from inside of my soul, and this kind of search, it doesn't stop. It's just it's going on. And you will see in the presentation, which is chronologically how the work developed, and you will see some installation shots from exhibitions I had with Choi and Choi. Also, and some recent shows I had in Cologne. This work shows the oldest work in the presentation. I painted at when I finished my studies in Düsseldorf. So it's different than other paintings you might know, more recent works, because it's very figurative and it shows faces. And you might know works of mine, of the hanboks, where you don't see any faces, or fading faces, or any faces. But in this work, it's very classical in a way. It shows a double portrait. And maybe some of you might remind that work on portraits of David Hockney. And I have to admit, I was very into David Hockney's work, especially the portraits at that time. So this is obviously a reference to David Hockney's double portraits, which show an interior, a very empty interior. You have some some objects like the plant on the floor. You have the carpet, you have a sofa, kind of very, yeah, contemporary setting. Yeah, and you have these two women, young women. They are friends of mine I grew up with. They are also half Korean, half German. And you see Nina, the one sitting on the sofa in casual clothes, and the other is Jenny. She's wearing a hanbok, a traditional hanbok. Um, and at that time, she was doing the traditional dance. She had this hanbok, so I asked her to wear it for the portrait session. And for me, it's a kind of metaphor. Two sisters, the one wearing European casual clothes and the other wearing the Korean traditional dress. And for me, this was a way how to express this kind of in-betweenness, being between two cultures, representing two cultures. And yeah, the faces are kind of very concrete. You see the expression, um, you see everything quite defined. Later, in later works, you will see the faces more fading or no faces, and the focus only on the dress, on the hanbok. Yeah, but in this painting, you still see my formation as a traditional artist, especially portraits. I was very much into portraits. Here you see another figure. You still see a face, um, but it's not a portrait anymore. It's a scene where you see a figure laying on the ground. It's kind of stage. The background is quite abstract, undefined. And you see a person wearing a hanbok. This hanbok was lent to me by my cousin in Korea, whose husband died. So this was a very important information for me, that this was the hanbok of her beloved husband. And the handbook is worn by my brother, so this is quite an important information. So my brother is wearing the handbook of a dead person, and I think you all might know how it is to to touch clothes by a dead person. It's the clothes are still kind of they have this aura of the dead person. It's as if the person would be still present in the dress, in the clothes. So it's something very intimate. And so the work is called The Dead Man, but not only because the hanbok belonged to a dead person, but because it's a reference to another painter I really admire, which is Manet, Edouard Manet, a French painter from 19th century. And it's a very famous, iconic painting that shows a dead toreador lying on on a floor like this, undefined kind of stage, and very same posture. And yeah, so it's really a very obvious reference uh, uh, to an art historical or to a very iconic painting from 19th century. This is not a portrait. Obviously, it shows a wedding duck. All those who are familiar with Korean culture might know this. If you have a traditional Korean wedding ceremony, there will be the couple, a table, and then objects and food arranged on this table. So there are two wooden ducks, and the ducks are beautifully wrapped with a special cloth. And yeah, I saw this in Ando, where I went to in a couple of years ago. And Andong is a city in the southern part of South Korea, which is very famous because it conserves the Confucian tradition and rituals in a very authentic way. So I went there on purpose on New Year's Eve, Korean New Year's Eve, which is Seollal. It's the Chinese New Year. And I spent there a couple of days with the family there, the family E, and there they prepared these wooden ducks for me, especially, so I could see them and take pictures of these ducks. And yeah, so the duck is a symbol of being together all their life. So it's a symbol for a good and long marriage. Yeah, and it's kind of the same setting like the Dead Man, because it shows a background, a scene. It's like a stage. You have a dark background, which is a reference also to old masters painting. They are you very often have a dark background and the object kind of very 3D like presented in the foreground. So if we switch to the other painting, which is Sonae's Chima, you see it's a very different visual impression you get. So it's a very bright background, almost golden, and the object is painted on it in a very realistical, plastical way. So the background is flat. It's a very different technical approach than the other two I showed you. Less classical and maybe more modern in a way. And obviously there is a reference to East Asian traditional art because I used an abstract background and I painted it with pigments in mixed with an acrylic dispersion. And I painted several layers. The first is horizontal, the second is vertical, the third might be also horizontal. And so I get this structure, which also gives you a feeling of three-dimensionality. And at the same time, it's abstract, it's flat. So for me, this next step or this approach was really a way how to get kind of rid of this very traditional approach. So to paint the object, which is the hanbok of this cousin I mentioned before. She gave me the beautiful hanbok. It's only showing the chima, the dress under the dress below. And it shows the inner side of the hanbok. So the dress itself is black with these beautiful floral details on it. But I show you the inside part of it, which has these beautiful, very typical Korean colors. And it has this beautiful dynamic as if it would be floating. And yeah, at the same time, it's really like floating in the emptiness. And that's something I really love in East Asian aesthetic or painting, that the emptiness is it's so important. It has the same quality and the same value as what is on the painting. The object and the emptiness of the background, they have the same value. So this has, of course, to do a lot with the East Asian philosophy, like the Taoism, where emptiness is such an important value. And this is something that didn't exist, I think, in European aesthetic theories or arts until 20th century. And I wanted to integrate this aspect, this approach to my work. So this was a really nice solution for me. And yeah, here it's again a very narrative painting, but you see this kind of gaps, this emptiness is playing more and more an important role in the paintings. You have a stage again. You see a group of nurses, and yeah, obviously it's based on a photograph that I found in a photo album of my mom, showing her with a group of other Korean nurses who came to Germany in the 60s, and you see them as young women. But here you already can see that the faces are fading more and more. It's like with a photograph, an old photograph, which is kind of fading, losing its colors, and yeah. So playing with this emptiness, it was really thrilling because the emptiness can mean so much. You will have so many questions from the viewer, from the audience looking at it and asking you why. Are there these gaps? Why didn't you paint the faces? What does it have to mean? As an artist, you don't have to answer these questions because it's the artwork has its own life after you finished it, and you're not responsible as an artist to explain your artwork. But I just give you some information about the artworks, which helps you to understand them maybe better. But I don't want to be the one who explains them 100% because it would lose its mystery. So in this painting, you see in the background cranes, and it's this traditional wall painting you find in Changdeokgung Palace in Seoul, a beautiful, maybe the most beautiful palace in Seoul. I love it. I always go there when I'm in Seoul, and it shows cranes flying, coming over the sea and landing on the coast, the pines, you have a moon, and the cranes are, of course, very important animals in Korean art, Korean painting, and they stand for longevity. They bring a lot of luck. So what I was interested in that they have the same color like the nurses. So the nurses are wearing these beautiful uniforms, which nurses today wouldn't wear, black and white with these beautiful hats, and the cranes having the same color, black and white. And yeah, they are flying over the ocean like these Korean women also did. It was their first trip. They haven't seen anything from the world after Korean was a very poor country still after Korean War in the 60s. So they had to go to support their families, and this painting is a reference to these really brave women who did this incredible adventure, this trip, and to put them to this kind of in this mythological setting was for me really. I was very happy to find this solution. So we have kind of stage figures almost fading, and then this kind of mythological background that, yeah, kind of gives them another dignity, I would say. This shows the first installation shot shows my first show I had in Seoul with Choi and Choi already such a long time ago, 2018. And yeah, you see the works I showed at that time. They are still very narrative, and you have a very concrete background, a concrete setting, figures wearing hanboks. Now we come to the plan paintings. I mean, I haven't told you that I'm not only into uh, approaching my own identity as a person, as an artist, but of course there are other aspects that are very interesting for me as an artist, as a person, and I'm very much into botany, into gardening. So another series in my work are the plant paintings. So this shows a work where you also can see a reference also to East Asian painting, which is the abstract background. So this is something that doesn't come from European art, but the way I paint the plants is very much kind of old master style. I have this colored, undefined background, and then the plants painted in oil in a very realistic way. The lights are coming out very highlighted, and other plants are just kind of fading in the background in the darkness. And here I was very much inspired by Sottobosco painting, which is the plants, the vegetation that grows underneath the trees in the shadow. It's not sweet. So it's when you paint plant paintings, you should be always aware that it can get too sweet, too harmless. And for me, it's important that the plant paintings have something obscure, something dark. So also the color, the red color, is kind of aggressive. And I like this complementary contrast of the cold green and this kind of almost aggressive red. Yeah, this is one of my main plant paintings I really love. It's quite huge as well. And here you see an undefined dark green background. And it's also more like a stage, like almost like an underwater scenery of plants. And the light is coming from above. And I really wanted to have this kind of endless vegetation that would continue over the limits of the canvas. And it's very different than my hanbok paintings because everything, it's over the limits, whereas in the hanbok paintings you have a defined object, the hanbok, the figure, standing in an abstract, empty, undefined space. And the plant paintings are very, very lush and full. The canvas is filled. So that's maybe something I search for, this for the strong contrast in my work, to not only doing one thing where I would get bored very easily, but to have another approach which would be very different. Though it's always oil on canvas, I search for different approaches and doing different things. And not only one thing where I would repeat myself. And it doesn't have to do anything with my cultural background, but it's something where I really get into losing myself, forgetting myself, and which is not narrative, but only a vegetation or plants, nature. Yeah, but this is again a hanbok painting, and you see the background is gray. It's always different. The way I paint it, it's a lot of coincidence as well. I leave or lose a little bit the control about how I paint it. And then the figure is painted, of course, very, very precisely. You see the dress with all these patterns painted very precisely, but then it loses the preciseness where I am coming to the face, to the hands. It's getting almost transparent also in the dress. So it's a beautiful method to bring mystery in a painting and to have questions opened. Who is that figure? Why is it fading? Yeah, I don't want to answer them or want to interpret too much, but it was for me a very important tool or effect to bring kind of mystery in the paintings, or secret. We had a still life already with a wedding duck. This is a very yeah, it really shows this kind of Jesa arrangement. So for those who don't know what is Jesa, it's the arranged food that Koreans serve on holidays like Seollal, which is New Year's Eve, and Chuseok. And so Koreans serve food for their dead family members, and this is a very Confucian traditional ritual. And the dead family members, the ancestors, should help themselves and eat what the living relatives offer to them. So for me, this was it was beautiful to discover this ritual because it's so irrational in a way and something that is quite exotic. Exotic is a bad word, but kind of astonishing to Europeans. Because of course dead people cannot eat. But food is so important in dead rituals all over the world, though it's so irrational, but it's so beautiful because it really shows the humbleness of, or it should show the humbleness and the respect that the living persons owe to the dead, to the ancestors. So yeah, here you see arranged fruits and a very Northern European green, I don't know, we call it green cabbage. So I think in Korea it's not, you don't get it. So also in this kind of still life, I wanted to have a kind of fusion of Korean fruits and obviously strange food that is not available in Korea. So what is also interesting here is maybe that it's inspired by Spanish Baroque still life painting. That is very different to Flemish Baroque still life painting because it's very severe. It's very almost meditative because it's arranged in a very strict way. The vessels are standing in a row. The background is black. So it might remind you on still life paintings by Zurbarán, the Spanish Baroque painter, and Juan Sanchez Cotan. So they have a more meditative quality compared to the Flemish still lifes. They are calmer, and I really love this calmness, this meditative quality of these still lifes because they have a kind of spiritual quality that really fits well to these Jesa arrangements because they are also spiritual. This is another installation view from the gallery space in Cologne. And you see a new, it's not a classical canvas, but a folding screen, which is, of course, also an Asian medium. I mean, the folding screen you find in China, in Japan, and in Korea. And I was kind of very much interested in how it would work for me as a medium because it's also three-dimensional and it has a function. It stands in a room, it hides something, and you can fold it. And for me, it was interesting to see how, in this case, these plants, these big leaves, would work on this folded ground. So it has more, or the leaves, they get almost three-dimensional effect or quality because of this folded screen. The background of it is completely blue. I chose a blue cotton and spanned it over the canvas. So from behind, it really looks very modern, very cool. And then from this side, you really see this kind of three-dimensional plants. And in the same show, we had a room which was dark colored, showing the plant paintings. And I really wanted to create this meditative atmosphere, this mood in the room. In both paintings, I'm showing butterbur plants, which also grow in Japan and in Korea. You also can eat them, butterbur. And it's a very ordinary plant. It's not really beautiful, but what I really like about them is the strength and these big rough leaves with these destroyed parts where the snails have eaten something. They're absolutely not beautiful, but I like the power they have, especially in the paintings. They're really coming out. Here you see a painting from 2021, Amitabha Buddha, and it's called like this because it shows, it shows the Buddha with his Amitabha Buddhas, the small Buddhas. And the original painting is very, very small, but I wanted to blow it up to this oversized wall painting. And you see these figures dressed in very ordinary daily clothes. And these two are my great aunties, so aunties of my mom. I think they're still living, over 100 years old. And I met them in Korea a couple of years ago. And it was really beautiful because it was really an encounter with the past of my family. So I portrait them here also in this kind of mythological setting, like the nurses in front of the cranes. And you have this plastic bag, which gives a red accent in the background, in this black, almost black painting. A cat which comes out. You don't know if out of the wall painting or where does the cat come from. Yeah, it's also a way to bring daily life, ordinary life persons who might be ordinary, which aren't ordinary, a kind of, or put them in a mythological setting to give them a special dignity, which they have, but might not be obvious. When I go to Korea, what is really striking is that there are still so many old people on the streets, and most of them are poor. They're collecting paper or selling food. So this kind of poverty is, yeah, for Europeans is not, it's kind of unusual because older people mostly, not they are in general wealthy, but in I think in Asia or in Korea, you see a lot of old poor people, but they really have a dignity. And if you imagine what they experienced in this really crazy history of Korea, of war and dictatorship, they might have gone through unimaginable things. So yeah, it's an homage also to this generation of Koreans. Yeah, to give them this dignity by setting them in this mythological context. Yeah, and here you see installation shot from my show in the Museum for East Asian Art in Cologne a couple of years, or not, yeah, it's 2 years ago or 1.5 years. And I was very, very happy about this opportunity to show my work there. It's one of the oldest East Asian museums in Europe, and the biggest, I think, after the one in Paris. And what was really beautiful there was that they showed 3 objects from their collection, which one is a traditional robe. It's a wedding dress, a wedding robe, and it contrasted with a traditional wedding dress I painted. I painted exactly this one. I was commissioned by the museum with variation. So I didn't paint it 100% the dress, but with some changes. Here you see the dress I painted, and it was, kind of mirrored with the original, together with a beautiful teapot, I think from 16th century. So very precious, very beautiful. And yes, it was really a beautiful atmosphere to have these really precious objects from the collection of the museum. Here you don't see it so well. It's a box. It's a beautiful sutra box in this vitrine, which has these patterns of mother's pearl, and this shimmering was really beautifully playing with my big plant paintings, which also have this shimmering quality. You have these dark backgrounds, and the leaves coming out of the dark background. And here you see the triptych of pond lilies, which were beautifully presented here on the dark wall. Yeah, here you see a very recent painting I showed with Choi and Choi this year. And I'm very happy that this painting was purchased also by Pak Sobo Foundation. And Choi and Choi Gallery was doing a great job this year in promoting my work in Korea, in Seoul. And I was very happy with the feedback, with the resonance we had with this show. So very happy that the very important Pak Sobo Foundation, which are collecting Korean, not only Korean, but young Korean contemporary artists, and for their museum. I think it's under construction, the museum where they will present their collection. And it shows, again, a wedding dress, a hwarot, and with these beautiful, beautiful patterns. And in this painting, I quoted the wonderful early Renaissance painter, Italian early Renaissance painter Antonello da Messina. It's a Madonna, Madonna con Bambino. And the wedding dress is, of course, for women who will become a mother. And I wanted to show this kind of mystery of motherhood. And it's obviously a fusion really of two cultures, of two artworks, the hwarot, the Korean hwarot, and then the beautiful Madonna from Antonello da Messina. And then you have, as the hwarots are kind of patchworks because they were so precious, that a woman would wear it only once in her life. And then she would give it to her daughter, who would wear it for her wedding. And then the granddaughter. So with the time, the dress would would need some reparations. So they added more and more patches. And so it became a patchwork, which is a beautiful thing. It's so poetic. And I used patches to bring my own patches on the dress. So you like windows, you see this green floral scene, which is from Fra Angelico, a painting from Fra Angelico, L'Annunziazione. And you have these stars, which remind you a lot to Mother Mary, to the celestial setting. So I bring together so many things that were so important also for me as a person, my Catholic education, the formation as a old master's admirer, and then the Korean wedding dress. It's really, I put a lot in it. It's very dense. And here again, I use the hanbok more and more like a projection surface for project other narrative scenes in it. So something is happening suddenly. There's a code and you open it and then there's a scenery. There's a three-dimensional space. So there is a woman bowing. You don't know who it is. It's kind of blurry. And I use the hanbok more and more to tell another story and not only to show the hanbok. Same gesture, a code that is opening. This is, by the way, a reference also to the Godmother in Christian iconography, because it was very popular to show her with an open code and the children and all the Christians gathering under her coat. And it's a very strong gesture because it shows the mother protecting her children. And here the figure is opening her coat, and you see the little details, which are details, floral details from Flemish still life painting. Here, in this case, it's Rahel Reusch. It's a woman who is very successful as a still life painter, and her work is really beautiful. And this is a reference also to Rahel Reusch, this woman artist, this tough woman artist from the 16th century. Where you see these works, I showed with Choi and Choi this year. And yeah, I was very happy to see them here all gathered. Yeah, this is also a recent hanbok painting. And you don't have these details in all of the hanbok paintings, but here you really see the face is not visible. It's showing a figure. You see a presence of a figure, a person, but at the same time, it's not there. So it's really always a kind of play between absence and presence. And it's so important, the aspect of presence and absence in the paintings. If it's about persons, about dead people, like the ancestors, family members, fading, biography, stories fading, and making them at the same time visible through painting. And this is an installation view from my recent show, my last show at Braunsfelder. It's an important institution in Cologne. From this year, you see another folding screen, a bigger one than the other, also pond lilies. And what you don't see is the background, which was mirrored completely. So it's really kind of very contemporary, cool object. And at the same time, you see this dark, dark, dark space where these leaves of the pond lilies come up. And yeah, here you see two of these recent Jesa paintings. Also very classically arranged, very kind of strict, and yeah. So yeah, the next one here you see the folding screen much better with another small Jesa painting. Here you see one of my plant paintings. And yeah, I was just very, very happy about this show because the space is so beautiful and it's such a great institution. And yeah, so I'm very happy with these two shows I had this year and about the feedback we got. And also, I want to thank you, Choi and Choi Gallery, for all their efforts and believing in my work for the last 10 years now. And yeah, here we are.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we open to the Q&A.